All right, we're installing gauges today and I'm gonna show you the plan. All right, so here's the engine bay, and actually today we're gonna be installing 3 gauges. We're gonna be installing boost, which we're probably gonna be running out of the blow-off valve, which seems to be the standard procedure. We also have water temperature right here. And then also underneath we have an oil temperature gauge. I have the wires running here, but I'm most likely going to run them a little bit differently because the problem is the best grommet generally is right here behind the intercooler, but I do not want to take this off again because it was a pain in the ass to get back on. So an alternative place is right here in the wheel well on the driver's side. Basically, we're gonna run all of our wires to the driver's side, and then we're just gonna kind of poke them through. We're gonna take them through the wheel well here, and then there is a grommet right here, which you can see I stuck my light in because I don't know if you can see, but you could see the kind of the light poking through. So that's where our light is, and that's going to be our access. And I think honestly it's perfect. It's right here in the wheel well. We can run all of the wiring through the steering column. It's easy to get. I don't gotta take the intercooler off or anything like that. Let's get everything sort of ran through the grommet, and then we'll get to wiring and all that other stuff. So the gauges we're gonna be installing are the ProSport JDM series water temperature, oil temperature, and boost. They got a really good premium features, really good premium look, but all for a decent budget. I've used them in the Miata and I like them because they got, you know, peak temperature warnings. They got a really cool opening sequence, daisy chaining, so it makes wiring super easy. I like them, so reached out to them and they were nice enough to help us out and get these gauges for us to install and show you. All right, so I got all the wiring, all the vacuum hoses and everything ran through the engine bay. And I'm gonna show you on the screen just kind of like the actual route that I took. But basically we have our oil temperature, which is obviously coming out of our sandwich plate adapter on the oil filter. That runs all the way up here. And then I just kind of ran it across, make sure it's kind of out of the way of anything. And then obviously it goes down the fender. Water temp comes from here, runs its way over here. And then there's kind of like a wire already here or a hose right here already. So I just kind of piggybacked off of that, runs over the battery, and then also it goes down through there. Boost. Wiring obviously runs down to the fender. This is going to be the boost sensor, and that just kind of runs over here, vacuum hose into a filter, and then that runs into a T-section into the blow-off valve. Now, I did not cut the blow-off valve. A lot of people cut the blow-off valve. I just ran the T because that way it's easily reversible if I need to. So I'd rather not cut this if I have to. And then, yeah, all of that runs in through to the fender. All the wires run down here. You can see wires go through here. There's the original OEM grommet. I drilled a hole into it so I can fit my wires, so it looks pretty clean. So as you can see, all right, and so once it goes through there, very easily, all of the wires will pop out through this hole right here behind this kind of white plug. And then what I did was I basically drilled a hole. Be careful not to hit any of your connectors, but I drilled a small hole very carefully. And as you can see, I ran the wires through that because obviously when this is plugged up, there has to be a space for the wires to go. So as you can see, they kind of just run out through the back. Again, be careful not to mess up any of the connectors that are connected here. And then I got my wires out here so I can kind of run them. So the boost, because it's the closest one to the fender well, that one doesn't look like I have to run any additional or lengthen any additional wiring because I'm most likely gonna mount it somewhere up here near the steering column. The water temp and the oil temp, they're definitely a little bit too short because I want to run them to the center console right there, so they're not going to really reach from here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just basically buy some extra wire, and you know, it's really simple. There's only 2 wires for each of those connectors, so then I'm just going to go ahead and do that. All right, so we got our wires extended, and now we're just going to run them from here through here and into the center console. right, so I just yanked out the radio. There it is. And the way I'm gonna wire this is basically I'm gonna tap everything that I need into the radio harness. Now, if you have an aftermarket radio and if you have an old Subaru like mine, most likely you do, I think that's gonna be the easiest because every single wire that we need to tap into is labeled already, and that makes it super easy to basically just, you know, match them up and splice into it. You don't gotta worry about fuses or tap of fuses or anything like that. You can even make the adjustments to the aftermarket harness adapter so you don't have to, you know, risk screwing up any of your OEM wiring. So that's what we're gonna do. So I just gotta match what's on the instructions to what's labeled on my radio harness, and yeah, we should be good to go. So I really wanted to quickly go over why these posi-taps are so much better than these kind of like traditional taps that we are kind of used to seeing, because these are the cheapest ones, where basically you run the wire that you're trying to tap, you know, in like this, and then whatever other wire that you're trying to basically connect to this, you put it through the other hole, you squeeze this down, there's two little gates. I don't know if you can see them, but they kind of go over, cut the wire, and then they make that connection, and then you just kind of fold these over. The problem with these is that they're pretty unreliable. Sometimes they don't cut the jacket that the wire's in really well or whatever, but I've had gremlins before because these connections aren't that great. However, so this is new. These are called posi-taps, and this is the first time I've ever seen them. They're way, 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 way easier to work with and not as fumbly as those other taps that I showed you. Basically what you do is whatever wire that you're trying to connect to, you pull out, unscrew one side of it, and there's sort of like a little U shape that you can kind of fit the wire in, like that. Then on the tap, there's like a little needle. And what you do is when you screw this in, when you screw it in, that needle pierces that wire, and then there's your kind of your connection, right? Then all you do on the other side is you unscrew the other end, you stick the wire that you're trying to connect to through that end, and then there's a little bit of another needle right there, and just simply screw it in. And then there's your teed connection. And, you know, it's pretty robust for just no tools at all. Okay, that was pretty easy. Got everything wired up. These posi-taps are amazing. I've never used them before, and this is the first time using them. So much easier. The connection is so easy, and it feels secure, unlike those little flappy T-tap thingies that we are used to using. But anyway, plugged into the back of a gauge. Just want to see if I got power. So let's see. Oh yes, perfect. All right, I'm confident with that. And what's cool is with the JDM series from ProSport, I only have to wire one gauge. So all the other gauges, I can run basically a daisy chain wire from each gauge to the others. So I don't have to wire it once. So it keeps it super, super clean. All right, so I have two gauges that are gonna go obviously here, and that's gonna be the water temp and the oil temp, but I also have a boost gauge that I kind of want to always see because, you know, it's gonna be doing that cool stuff, obviously off of boost. Unnecessary, but hey, that's part of the enjoyment of driving a car, right? So I'm thinking about actually mounting it here on the hood, the gauge hood here, like right there. So you can kind of imagine, you know, kind of in my line of sight, but also not in the way. But obviously I'm gonna have to run wires through it. But luckily, if you take the hood off, you can see these holes right here that actually have, you can see with my light right here, direct access to where the wiring is gonna be running from. So I'm gonna utilize one of these holes already to run my wires, which means that one of these clips I'm gonna have to cut off and make some room so that I can run wiring through it. So that's what we're gonna do right now.